Hello, friends, and welcome to the Cinemondo podcast with just me. Sorry. Um, I'm going to talk about a TV series. I started the first episode. It was a really long episode, but that one was sort of an overview. This one I'm going to start getting into the distinct episodes in a more concise way and a little bit quicker, hopefully. But the series is a Polish television series from the late 80s, from 1988, called Dekalog, or The Dekalog. I think it's just called Dekalog. Directed, all the episodes are directed and co-written by Kieslowski, who you may know from the Color trilogy, the red, blue, and white, I believe, and incredible films. And this series is a television series in 10 parts, 10 one-hour episodes, which comes out to be 10 hours. And some people consider this 10-episode series, they consider this to be one single work. So sometimes it's considered, when you read lists of favorite best films of all time, whatever, sometimes this series is considered to be one work, one film. So I'm going to talk about it episode by episode because I'm going to consider it to be a series, a 10-part series, which is sort of a modern thing. With this 10-episode television series back in 1988 was a little unusual because back then television series were still like 24 episodes or 30 episodes or 34 episodes was a single season. But this is only 10, and I guess at the time it's a film cycle or something. There may be a name for that, but now we just consider such things to be a series or a mini series. So anyway, I talked about the first episode. The second episode is called Dekalog 2. The title of each episode is just 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 10. This episode 2 involves another look into people's lives, like I discussed in the first episode about Dekalog 1. The series seems to me to be a look through a window, like I was saying, like we're being presented the daily lives of strangers. We're being shown these people. The symbolism of windows, glass, barriers, transparent barriers between people is all through this film, and reflections of people and reflections in mirrors, and also people sort of emerging out of shadows. The very first time you see a character, they often appear out of darkness and kind of come into the light, which is almost like they're being created at that moment in the film, which is kind of interesting because what we're seeing is a piece of real life, or the filmmaker's written version of real life. But what we're seeing is a moment in certain people's lives, and almost all of the stories take place in an apartment complex in Soviet era communist Poland. So it's got that look. Like I said in the first episode, it has kind of a grim and slightly depressing, kind of dismal melancholy to it. And the characters don't seem all that happy. A lot of the characters, whenever they do something that expresses happiness, you kind of seem a little surprised, like, wow, he's a happy person in this world. But other than that, the stories tend to be sort of grim as well. The look into their lives often are not very happy lives. Their happiness is somehow threatened by a dilemma, moral, ethical dilemma. And in the second episode, we see the kind of sad daily life of a doctor, and he lives in this housing structure, this apartment complex. And a woman who is his neighbor, she plays in the symphony. And what's interesting is, if this were an American series, I believe a doctor would be living in a really nice house, as would a woman who plays in the symphony orchestra. You'd think that she would live in kind of a fancier place, but The doctor and her and all the other characters so far in the series who live in this apartment structure are, none of them have particularly fancy things. They just live in these apartments that all kind of seem very similar. You can kind of guess why. But the doctor has his daily life. You see him waking up and making his breakfast and going about his day, and then, going to the office and all that. And there's a woman, his neighbor, who's standing in the hallway smoking a cigarette, looking upset. And they eventually interact with each other, and you find out that she wants the doctor to tell her about the medical condition of her husband, who is in the hospital. She seems really on edge. She seems very edgy, very upset about him, because evidently he's laying in the hospital in some sort of indecipherable state of health. And she asks the doctor, "Can you tell me, is he okay? Is he going to live?" And the doctor basically says, "Look, you need to come back on Wednesday." And she gets kind of upset with him. And eventually he takes sympathy on her, and he says, "Okay, I'll tell you." And he says, "I don't know." He basically says, "I don't know." And eventually their relationship kind of progresses, and she ends up telling him the reason why. It's not because she's so desperately in love with him and so worried and concerned. She is pregnant, and she is wondering if he's going to live, because the baby is not his. So she wants to know if he's going to live. She is going to end her pregnancy. But if he is going to die, then she's going to keep the baby and get together with the real father of the baby. So it turns out to be this sort of slightly kind of icky reason why she wants to know how her husband is doing. And the doctor, there's a question at the end, and that's sort of the dilemma, the ethical dilemma of this episode, which is really interesting because it seems just flat out cold and sort of heartless and selfish of her. And you don't know what kind of, you really don't know what kind of a person her husband was. So you don't know if he was a jerk, and it's good if she gets away from him, but all these different questions that you might have if you watch this. The characters in this are really interesting. The doctor is just this working guy, and the woman is just torn and haunted by her choice that she needs to make. And the ending of it is a bit of a twist. It has that kind of a twist that you might see in a show like maybe Black Mirror or something, which I compared this show to sort of unfairly. It's really not like Black Mirror. It's sort of it doesn't rely on technology. It relies on other things to inform the points of the story. But I did say they were kind of similar in the way they develop stories and the way the characters develop and the way you learn about people. And in this episode, you learn about this woman, you learn about the doctor, and you find out something at the end that's not quite clear. I don't want to give it away completely, but you can kind of guess. I mean, there's only a couple of ways that it might end, but it's kind of it was sort of unexpected to me, and it left me thinking about it. After it was over, it left me thinking about I didn't know how it happened exactly. I didn't know if the doctor had been dishonest, or if he had told the truth, if he really just didn't know, or if he knew. If he did, and it leaves you with these questions purposefully, I think, because it's interesting to ponder these different ideas, like, oh, what if the doctor did it for this reason? What if he lied to her so that she would do something he wanted her to do? Or what if he told her the truth the way he believed it and was simply wrong? Or, there's a lot of ways to interpret the way it ends, as far as why we're given the setup of her sort of moral ambiguity, of her moral ethical reasons for her part of the plot and why it ends the way it does. I'll let you think about that if you see it when you watch it, and maybe let me know in the comments what your interpretation of it was. Do you think the doctor did something a little bit perhaps unethical but ethical, depending on how you weigh it? It's an interesting story, and the episodes of this series that I've watched have all had very interesting ethical questions that are really fascinating, and sort of fun thought experiments, fun things to sort of ponder after you watch it and to discuss. Interesting to talk about. But anyway, that's my mini review of Dekalog 2. And thanks for watching, and I will talk to you again real soon.